Hey, hey, Disney fans, planners, and reluctant visitors. I'm Becky, and this is Touring Plans Teaches. This week, we're continuing our series of Walt Disney World touring strategies. And I've had a lot of requests for strategies for Magic Kingdom on high crowd days. So if you have to tour the parks during spring break, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, these really popular times, what's the best way to plan a day through Magic Kingdom? I've also had requests to sort of split these into two different touring strategies. One, where you use Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane, and maybe you're staying off site so you can't use early entry. And then the other to be those resort guests that are using early entry and trying to avoid paying for Genie Plus or individual Lightning Lane. So this week you get a 2-for-1. We're going to look at Magic Kingdom on a high crowd day, both with and without Genie Plus, and with and without early entry. We're going to use December 27th as sort of our donor day for these plans. On December 27th, we're expecting a crowd level 10 at Magic Kingdom. It's that week between Christmas and New Year's that everything gets really crowded and crazy. We expect the park hours to be something like 8 a.m. to midnight, so you have a ton of time to spend in the park. How are you going to best use all of those hours to try to do as much as possible without waiting in any really crazy lines? So let's take a look. For our first strategy, we're going to assume that you're an off-site guest, so you can't use that early entry perk. You're going to be entering the park when it officially opens. And we're going to assume that you're going to be spending your money on Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane as a way to avoid some of the crazy lines at the most popular attractions. Now, like we did last week, we're going to talk about all of your Genie Plus booking before we get into how your day is actually going to run, because when we go back and forth, it gets more confusing. So let's talk about some strategies for making the best use of Genie Plus at Magic Kingdom on a high crowd day. The good thing about Genie Plus at Magic Kingdom is that you have a lot of options to choose from. The bad thing about Genie Plus at Magic Kingdom is that you have a lot of options to choose from. So if you're not careful, you're going to get yourself walking all across the park, and you might have overlapping return times, and it can get messy really quick. What I suggest at Magic Kingdom is to focus your Genie Plus reservations on 1 or 2 lands so that when those return times start coming back, you aren't walking all over the place. Now, on a high crowd day, those return times are going to be advancing really quickly, and so we want to have a good plan of attack for where we're going to save the most time. And we still might end up walking around a little bit, which we'll see when we get to how our day actually runs, but this is going to save us from bouncing back and forth from Tomorrowland to Frontierland to Fantasyland and all over the place. So, even though we're an off-site guest, we can start making Genie Plus reservations at 7 a.m. We're going to do that, and we're going to book Jungle Cruise very first thing. And even when I log on at 7 a.m., demand for Jungle Cruise is going to be really, really high because it's a high crowd day, and so my return time is probably going to be in the afternoon already. This is okay because we want to sort of stack those Genie Plus return times into the afternoon when crowds are high anyway. So I'm going to take that 3 p.m. return time for Jungle Cruise. Next, we see something for 8 a.m. on our plan, and that's Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is the individual Lightning Lane attraction at Magic Kingdom. And if you're an off-site guest, you can't book that until the park actually opens. So the park opens at 8 a.m. today, and now I'm eligible to book that individual Lightning Lane. On high crowd days, the chances that Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is actually already sold out by the time I'm eligible to book it are pretty high. I probably have about a 50-50 chance of booking this right at 8 a.m. when off-site guests become eligible. If I do get it, that return time's probably going to be really, really late in the day. So we're going to assume that I got a little lucky here, and so I got a return time. I get to buy my way around the line at Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, but my return time's going to be 11 p.m. It's really, really late. That's okay. We can work our plan around that. Next, 2 hours after park opening, I'm eligible to make my next Genie Plus reservation. Again, I want to sort of focus things into 1 or 2 lands, and I want to save a lot of time. Splash Mountain accomplishes those things for me, so I'm going to book Splash Mountain next. And at 10 a.m., its return time is probably already something like 2 p.m. That's going to vary pretty wildly at an attraction like Splash Mountain based on weather that day. So if it's really cold on December 27th, no one wants to get wet and walk around the park. Those return times might be earlier. If it's abnormally hot, more people might want to ride. That return time might be later, but this is a pretty good average, and that's what we'll plan on. 2 hours later, I'm again eligible to make my next Genie Plus reservation. So we're at noon. I want to stay in that same general area, so I'm going to book Big Thunder Mountain, and its return time is now already all the way out at 5:45 p.m. 2 hours later, at 2 p.m., I can book Pirates of the Caribbean. We're again staying in this same area, so I'm not having to do too much walking, and it should save me a significant amount of time. So the return time for that is 6:15 p.m. Things are starting to bunch up a little bit, but it's still manageable. At 4 p.m., 2 hours have passed again, and now I'm going to book Meeting Mickey. This is a little further away from the rest of our attractions, but a lot of the headliners are already sold out for the day, especially because it's a high crowd day, lots of people using Genie Plus. And if I want to meet Mickey, it's going to have really long waits in this holiday period, and so it's a good thing to use it on. So I'm going to book that at 4 p.m., and the return time is just 5:15. A lot of people don't use Genie Plus for character meet and greets, even though it's a really good time saver. So I'm going to be able to use that one pretty quickly. That means instead of waiting 2 hours, I get to book another Genie Plus reservation as soon as I use that one, because it's less than that 2-hour window. So at 5:15 when I use it, I'm going to go ahead and book Winnie the Pooh for 9 p.m. That's because I've already used all of the good Genie Plus reservations in my little geographical area of Frontierland and Adventureland. And I still want to save some time. I know I'm going to be in Fantasyland late at night because I have that Seven Dwarfs Mine Train reservation, so Winnie the Pooh at 9 should save me quite a bit of time still. And that's going to be the last one I'm going to make. There are still some attractions that would have availability at 7:15 p.m. when I can book again, but it would require me to walk around a lot. It might overlap with fireworks, so I'm going to avoid booking anything else as part of my Genie plan for this day. Now that we've got our Genie Plus plan for the day all set, let's take a look at how our day is going to unfold in the parks. Remember, we're an off-site guest, so we don't get to do early entry. We're going to enter the park right at 8 a.m. There's already going to be a lot of people in line at a lot of attractions. Many of them, though, will go to Fantasyland, so we're going to try to zig when they zag, and we're going to go to Tomorrowland first. So the park opens at 8, we're going to go straight to Space Mountain. Its crowds are going to increase throughout the day, so we want to get there first. We'll still have a little bit of a wait, but it's not going to be over an hour long or 90 minutes long like it will be later in the day. After we do that, we can ride Buzz Lightyear and the Tomorrowland People Mover. These are two high satisfaction attractions that will both get crazy long waits later in the day that aren't worth it. So we're going to do all these three things first thing in the morning. This will probably take us something like an hour and a half to do these three attractions, which if you're used to visiting during low crowd times is a little bit crazy, but on the highest crowd days of the year, that's actually really, really good for these three Tomorrowland attractions. Once we're done with Tomorrowland, we're going to start working our way up through Fantasyland. We want to only hit attractions that have low waits, though, so we have about enough time in our plan to pick 2 lower weight Fantasyland attractions, or the Tomorrowland Speedway. I personally avoid that one at all costs, but if it's something that your party wants to do, now's the time to do it. So I would pick 2 of these attractions on your way up to sort of the core part of Fantasyland. You could do the Speedway, or Mad Tea Party, Dumbo, Under the Sea, or the Carousel. All of these should have manageable waits mid-morning. It's going to be longer than the 5 or 10 minutes that these attractions typically have in lower crowd times, but you can do 2 of them to round out sort of the middle of your morning and to take you from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland. Then to finish up our morning, so we started at 8 a.m., this is taking us all the way until noon, we want to hit It's a Small World and Haunted Mansion. These are classics, but people tend to not do them in the morning. They save them for a little bit later in the day. Especially Haunted Mansion is going to get crazy waits in the evening. That's when people like to do the sort of spooky rides in Magic Kingdom. So we're going to do It's a Small World, Haunted Mansion, and now that we've done our 3 Tomorrowland attractions, 2 sort of filler attractions, Plus, it's a Small World and Haunted Mansion. It's likely something like 11:30 or 11:45, we're hoping. This sets us up to get a good spot for the afternoon parade. On high crowd level days, the parade in Magic Kingdom typically runs twice, once at noon and once at 3. Noon is going to be your less crowded option. People tend to do the one that's more in the middle of the afternoon, so you don't have to deal with as many crowds at noon. It's still going to be crowded. And because we're at the Haunted Mansion, we're actually set up really well to get a spot at the best parade spot in the Magic Kingdom. You don't want to set yourself up on Main Street. People grab those spots really, really early, and you don't want to spend your time sitting there. Instead, on this map, we're showing you exactly where this parade spot is. If you're right by the Liberty Tree Taverns, you'll be able to see that sign. There's a stone wall sort of across the walkway from Liberty Tree Tavern. You can sit on that little stone wall during the parade, and not many people know about it. So you'll be able to stay seated, you'll be a little bit elevated, and there won't be people in front of you. The parade will come right by you, and then it turns and goes to the hub and down Main Street. So this is a really, really, really good spot, and you don't have to get there incredibly early, other than if this video gets really popular and everyone knows about it. But try to set yourself up there after Haunted Mansion to take in the noon parade. After you watch the parade, this is when you can eat lunch. We're going to talk dining options at the end of this episode, so I'll give you some suggestions there, but this is where we take our midday break, probably around 12:30 or 1. After that point, we need to fill a little bit more time until we can start using all of those Genie Plus reservations that we've been making. We're going to fill up from after lunch until about 2:30. Our Splash Mountain return time opens at 2. We don't want to use it right when it opens because that leaves a gap in between Splash Mountain and Jungle Cruise, so we're going to use it closer to 2:30 or 2:45. In between lunch and that reservation, you have several options. You can take the Liberty Square Riverboat, which typically doesn't have big lines. You can escape to Tom Sawyer Island, which is one of my favorite things to do on high crowd days. Not many people go over there. It feels a lot more relaxed. If you just need to get away from the humans, go to Tom Sawyer Island. Or you can catch Country Bear Jamboree or Enchanted Tiki Room. Avoid attractions with lines, but typically you'll be able to get into these shows without much of a wait. So we're going to do that until it's about 2:30. At 2:30, we're going to head over to Splash Mountain, and we're going to redeem our Genie Plus reservation for that attraction. So we're going to use the Lightning Lane. This attraction might otherwise have something like a 75-minute wait. Thankfully, that'll be much, much shorter if you're using Genie Plus. Then that'll allow you to walk down to Jungle Cruise to redeem your 3 o'clock reservation there and avoid the really, really long wait in the middle of the afternoon for that attraction. At this point, we have a little bit of a break between our Jungle Cruise reservation and our Meet Mickey reservation, and I'm suggesting that you spend that time on Main Street, especially since we're talking about a holiday period as an example for this strategy. You can take a lot of pictures there, you can watch the Dapper Dans, you can spend a lot of time doing your shopping for the day there, maybe getting an ice cream treat before you meet Mickey. So spend some time on Main Street, you're avoiding attractions with lines, and you're taking in some of the atmosphere of Magic Kingdom. At 5:15, then we move on to redeem our Lightning Lane for meeting Mickey Mouse. This will typically have a really obnoxious wait in the early evening. People come to the Magic Kingdom and they want to see Mickey, and he's right there on Main Street, so a lot of people are going to be sucked right in. You're going to avoid that wait with your Genie Plus reservation. After you meet Mickey, now's where we have a little bit of inevitable walking and even a slight backtrack. Even though I planned out these Genie Plus reservations in a little spot of the park, the way the timing works out sometimes isn't ideal. So we're going to be walking from Mickey all the way to Big Thunder, and thankfully we have about 30 minutes between those two windows, so we have time. It'll be okay, it's just a long walk. Then after Big Thunder, we're going back to Pirates, so we've got a little bit of a backtrack, Nothing too terrible though, but you are going to be doing a little more walking if you're using Genie Plus, just because it's hard to make everything ideal and line up nicely. After Pirates, so your Pirates window opens at 6:15. Ideally, you're there sort of on the early edge of that. Then you're going to go eat dinner. Again, I'll have suggestions about that. In this plan, I'm suggesting that you do your table service meal for dinner. It's really hard to avoid these pre-fireworks crowds. It's really hard to get anywhere in the park because there's so many people that you have to walk around and avoid. So it's easier just to do that table service meal around 7 o'clock, take about an hour and a half, and then hop into a fireworks spot. Fireworks should go off around 9 o'clock. Sometimes that changes based on sunset and certain times of year, but that'll set you up to get a spot somewhere in Main Street without camping out for several hours. So dinner, then fireworks. After fireworks, the park is still open. So we're going to assume you still have several more hours because on these high crowd days, the park's going to stay open till something like midnight most times. We had a Genie Plus reservation for Winnie the Pooh that opened at 9 o'clock. If the fireworks are at 9 o'clock, obviously we're not using that immediately. We're just going to make our way there after the fireworks end. As long as we're there by 10 p.m. when that window closes, we're fine. So we're going to redeem that, and then we're making our way back across Fantasyland to Peter Pan's Flight. We haven't been able to do this one yet. It has crazy long waits early in the morning and in the middle of the day, but late at night, when most of the families have made their way back to their resort or their hotel, the wait times go down. It is a classic, so I wanted to put it in the plan, so we're going to do it sort of as late as possible. That being said, we had an 11 p.m. return time for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, so we're going to use that to end our night. Pretty good end to the day. This is a full day. You went from 8 a.m. to midnight, but we did a lot of attractions, plus we saw the parade and fireworks and had a couple of meals, and Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane made a lot of that possible. All right, we've gotten through one whole strategy. Now we're going to shift our persona a little bit. We're going to pretend we're staying at a resort on site, so we have access to early entry, and we're already paying a lot of money for our tickets, so we're going to avoid Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane. We're just going to use sort of that savvy touring strategy to try to do all of the same rides, or as many as possible, without the Lightning Lane access. Since I already did one whole strategy, let's pass things off to Brian for this one.
Well, hello there. Oh, it's still spinning. Oh, okay. Technical difficulties.
Nah, Brian, so unreliable, am I right? One of these weeks. Okay, I'll keep talking. We'll see if we can make it through this. In this strategy, we have access to early entry, and we're going to use that to our advantage. The park opens at 8 a.m., so we get to enter at 7:30 a.m. And instead of going to Tomorrowland like we did on our first strategy, we're going to go to Fantasyland. We're going to get Peter Pan's Flight out of the way first thing. If you're lined up before early entry begins and you can go straight to Peter Pan's Flight, you can get on it with a very minimal wait, and that's going to save us a lot of time later in the day, and we don't have to save it for like 11 p.m. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to go to It's a Small World. Typically, I don't like doing It's a Small World during early entry because it's such a long attraction. You're spending something like 10 or 12 minutes in a boat instead of hopping from attraction to attraction and avoiding lines. But it's going to set us up well for our next step. It's actually good timing. We're aiming to get off of It's a Small World by the time the park officially opens. So we've done Peter Pan's Flight very quickly. We ride a boat for a little while and hope that the song isn't stuck in our head for the rest of the day. And then we're going to go over to Adventureland right as the park officially opens. This is because we're essentially rope dropping this land now. Adventureland and Frontierland are not open during early entry. So we've rope dropped Fantasyland, and now we're rope dropping Adventureland. We get 2 rope drops for the price of 1. Yay! So we're going to go to Jungle Cruise very first thing after the park officially opens. So we're aiming to be there at 8 a.m. Then we're going to head to Splash Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain, because all 3 of these attractions will have really, really bad waits later in the day. So we're going to try to get them done as quick as we can, sort of in this early and mid-morning. This is still going to take us a while, because after you do Jungle Cruise, Splash Mountain will already have a wait, and then by the time you get that done, Big Thunder Mountain's going to have a wait too, and so this is going to take up a significant portion of your time, but it'll be much better than doing it later in the day. After we hit those main 3 headliners, then we're going to backtrack a little bit and hit Pirates of the Caribbean and do 1 entertainment option. And so I made it Enchanted Tiki Room in this strategy. You could do Country Bear Jamboree or maybe Magic Carpets instead if you wanted. But we're just trying to fill up the rest of that morning until that noon parade again. And we're trying to stay in this area so we can use that cool parade viewing spot that I talked about in the first half of this video. So if we're keeping track, we got to Jungle Cruise at 8 a.m. We did Jungle Cruise, Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, Pirates, and a minor attraction, maybe a show, maybe Magic Carpets. And that's 5 attractions, and now it's already noon. So you can see the impact of crowds here. We should be able to do a lot more than that on a day where crowds are a little lower. We're going to take that parade spot and watch the noon parade since it's going to be less crowded. After that point, we're going to eat lunch, and then you're going to go meet Mickey. You're going to have a much longer wait to meet Mickey than the folks with the Lightning Lane access are going to have, but this is just going to get worse later in the day, so we're going to knock it out now, and then we're going to spend the early afternoon exploring Main Street, doing our shopping, getting some snacks, and watching the entertainment there. Later in the afternoon, we're going to do more things that avoid lines, so we're trying to save everything for the edges of the day. We did some headliners early in the morning, we're going to do a lot more late at night. So in the afternoon, we're going to head over to Liberty Square Riverboat, we're going to avoid all the humans at Tom Sawyer Island, and we're going to try to do the Country Bear Jamboree. Just things that get us away from people, but still have pretty high satisfaction scores and make us feel like we're having a good day at Magic Kingdom. In the late afternoon, so by this point it's probably already something like 4 p.m., we're going to hit Haunted Mansion. This has increasing wait times throughout the day, so we're probably going to have something like a 35-minute wait here, but that's a little bit unavoidable at this point. We're going to do Haunted Mansion, then we're going to scoot over and do a couple of these more filler rides that still have good satisfaction. For this strategy, I'm calling out Under the Sea and Mad Tea Party. You could still do the carousel, it's going to have a little bit more of a wait. Dumbo's probably going to have a wait, so I picked the ones that are likely to have the lowest wait times at this time in the late afternoon. Similar to our other strategy, we want to do our table service meal at dinner time, take our time, recharge. We've already been in the parks for something like 12 hours at this point, and get that energy up for fireworks and the rest of our late evening. So do your table service meal and then grab a spot for the fireworks. After fireworks, you are booking it to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and I mean booking it. The whole point of doing Seven Dwarfs Mine Train right after fireworks is that you're trying to beat the crowds there. So after fireworks, the crowd is kind of going to split in half. Half are probably going to leave for the night. They've already had a busy day. Half are going to stay and do more attractions. So you want to beat everyone that's staying for attractions to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. It probably has a low wait when everyone was watching fireworks, and so you want to get to the front of that line. It's like another mini rope drop. That's what we're trying to take advantage of. Then we're going to end our night in Tomorrowland. So on the first half of today's video, when we talked about that regular park opening strategy, we started our day in Tomorrowland. Now we want to end our day there. We're trying to hit Tomorrowland when there's low crowds. You're going to start with the People Mover, then you're going to move to Buzz Lightyear, and you're going to try to get in line for Space Mountain right before the park closes at midnight. That way, it's your last attraction of the day. Let's talk dining to wrap things up. In both of these strategies, lunch is going to happen right after we watch that noon parade. And if you're in that best parade viewing spot right by Liberty Tree Tavern, you have a couple of good options nearby. On these high crowd days, we want to avoid walking as much as possible. It's going to take you way too long to get through the sea of humanity to go anywhere. So we want to stay close to that parade viewing spot to get our meal. My suggested option is to go to Columbia Harbor House. It's literally right nearby, and it has great seafood options. Plus, if you order your food and then take it up the stairs to the second floor, there will be almost no one there. People don't like stairs, I guess. There will probably be some people there since it's a really high crowd day, but often on low crowd days, you can have a totally empty restaurant to yourself. It'll still be the least crowded dining location in all of Magic Kingdom. If you don't care about the crowds as much and you want to stay outside, the best views are going to be from Sleepy Hollow Refreshments. You can get waffles there, often with various toppings, and you have an excellent view of Cinderella's castle. So if you're going for the vibes, that's the good place to eat lunch. For dinner, I talked about that we want to do a table service meal. This is when we really need to rest our legs and recharge for the busy evening. We can do high satisfaction meals at Liberty Tree Tavern, or Skipper's Canteen. Those are the highest rated places in Magic Kingdom. Or if you want to be close to where you're going to be viewing fireworks, you don't want to deal with the crowds, you can choose from Crystal Palace and Tony's Town Square. These have lower satisfaction scores, although Tony's is trending upward, but it's going to put you in the right spot. You'll still have a relaxing meal, and you'll be able to get places for fireworks more quickly. The most important thing to remember on these high crowd level days is to have patience and to be sure to do your planning. You're going to encounter a lot of humans, and there's going to be cast members that are having a really bad day. Just pack your patience, you're going to get through it, and you're going to have an awesome day at Magic Kingdom. But be sure that you do your planning. We had 2 very different strategies, but they accomplished most of the same things throughout the day. You also have to remember that if you're doing things like table service dining, you're going to have to book them much further in advance than you're used to. There's a lot of demand for experiences and dining. So plan your days in advance, pack your patience, and you're going to have a good time at Magic Kingdom, even on these really crowded days.